Good evening and thank you for joining us. The investigation continues after the devastating end to a missing persons case involving Indigenous youth from Neskantaga First Nation.
The body of 14-year-old Mackenzie Muniz was discovered yesterday in the water near Marina Park. Police Chief Darcy Fleury says transparency with those affected will be the focus moving forward. Vasilios Bellos is following the story and joins us in studio with the details. Vasilios.
Thanks, Ryan. The identity of the body was confirmed by Anishinaabe Nation, which quickly raised concerns over the investigation and the missing persons process. First Nation leaders are referencing the numerous deaths of their youth in Thunder Bay since 2000, calling another one unacceptable. Another missing persons search involving an Indigenous youth in Thunder Bay has ended in tragedy. The body of 14-year-old Mackenzie Muniz of Neskantaga First Nation was found at the city's waterfront on Monday morning, with the identity being confirmed by Anishinaabe Nation. In a media release, NAN, along with the youth's home community of Neskantaga, quickly raised questions over the protocols and procedures surrounding missing persons investigations involving Indigenous youth. Thunder Bay Police Chief Darcy Fleury responded to those concerns, saying the investigation has been handled with respect.
Seeing really good quality work by our teams. With this event here, we had from the moment that she was reported missing, that we took the report. From the moment we took the report, we started our search immediately, and we worked that the entire evening and that morning, early morning, and then into the investigative stages the following morning.
Muniz was last seen around 9 a.m. on December 13th, with police issuing the missing persons alert early the morning of the 16th. Muniz had traveled to Thunder Bay to attend school. With First Nations leaders demanding answers, Chief Fleury vows transparency moving forward.
We really got to continue the communication. We got to be out front and talk about things and really have that strong messaging going forward that we're here to work together and help each other. And you know, the messaging that they put out there is community for the community to pay attention to what's going on.
Thunder Bay Mayor Ken Boshkov released a statement on Tuesday on behalf of the city, offering condolences to Muniz's family and Neskantaga First Nation. Neskantaga Chief Wayne Muniz made the trip to Thunder Bay on Tuesday, but was unavailable for an interview. Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
The province's Special Investigations Unit has wrapped up its probe into the hypothermia death of a young Indigenous man in Thunder Bay more than 8 years ago. The case was flagged for reinvestigation by the head of the OIPRD in 2018. 6 civilian witnesses were interviewed by the SIU last year. The director of the agency has now concluded there's not enough evidence to lay charges against the subject officer. 20-year-old Aaron Loon was found dead at Junot Park in March of 2015. Some of his friends had phoned 911 the night before, saying he was intoxicated and acting erratically, and was wearing only a t-shirt on a cold night. No police officers responded, citing other, more urgent calls. Then, an hour and a half later, the dispatcher asked the commanding officer if she should cancel the call, and the officer agreed. The SIU director took issue with that decision, but decided, with all other factors involved, that Loon's death couldn't be traced with confidence to any criminal negligence by the officer. The file has now been closed.
The Thunder Bay Police Board has sent its 2024 proposed budget for the board itself to City Council, and it comes with a $157,000 increase over 2023.
Most of that money is meant to address staffing shortages, which the board discussed at its monthly meeting today. Josh Morano has the details.
The $157,000 proposed budget increase for the Thunder Bay Police Board is broken down to 2 factors. The board is seeking an increase of $12,500 for consultant fees and a $145,000 increase to professional fees, all paid out to parties outside of the board. Secretary John Hannum presented the members with board needs, including positions that needed to be filled ideally by part-time members. Board member Wayne Belita countered with an attempt to keep the money down in the long run by looking to hire people full-time.
We need to ensure that we're proactive in what we're doing. Having casual employees on a consistent basis, which is the board, it's made of casual members and board staff, it's hard to sort of ensure that we're fulfilling everything that we need to do.
The board's latest unfavorable budget variance is estimated at $181,000. Meanwhile, the police force budget was not a topic of discussion as the 2024 spending plan is still awaiting approval by City Council. Instead, the board discussed their 2022 annual report. Highlighted by Chief Darcy Fleury and Inspector Gordon Snyder, the report showed decreases in crime such as robbery, break-and-enter, mischief, and fraud.
I think going forward, we had a really good start of 2023 with my arrival. I think we've had a really good start. We do have some plans going forward as far as tackling some of those major concerns and continuing putting the pressure on the illegal activity that's happening in our community, and just an overall operational plan, I guess, to make sure that people feel safe in the community.
Josh Morano, TBT News.
Resolute Forest Products has received a $500,000 fine related to the death of a woman at the Indigenous sawmill in March of 2022. The Ministry of Labor investigated the workplace fatality, and the case was recently dealt with in court. The victim was an industrial electrician working for an outside contractor who was attempting to repair a component on a debarking machine. According to the details laid out in court, she worked with the sawmill's maintenance team to lock out the machine beforehand, ensuring the electrical connections were all turned off. The procedure was done according to the company's written lockout guide. However, when she began the repairs, the machine's roller gears unexpectedly moved, trapping and fatally injuring the worker. Resolute pleaded guilty in court for failing to ensure the machine was locked out properly. The judge imposed a $500,000 fine plus a 25% victim surcharge.
After 32 plus years with the fire service, Thunder Bay Fire Chief Greg Hankio has announced his retirement. Hankio says there wasn't just one moment when he decided it was time to step down, adding there never really is a perfect time to make this choice.
It's been fantastic. It's been a wonderful career. I've enjoyed serving the citizens of Thunder Bay and working with an amazing group of people, not only within the fire service, but within the corporation. So, yeah, I think it's time for me to move on and enjoy life a little bit more.
City staff revealed the news during last night's City Council meeting, and Hankio confirmed that his last day will be January 31st. He started his career as a firefighter in 1991 and was appointed Deputy Fire Chief in 2007. He then became the Acting Chief in 2019 and was then given the job officially in November of 2020. Hankio says over the years he's met many great people who've helped him get to this point. He's now looking forward to spending more time with his family and catching up on hobbies outside of his profession.
This has truly been an incredible journey for me, and really as I go out, it's not really about, the rank that I hold being the fire chief. I think it's really, for me, when I look back over my career, it's about having been a public servant and in that context, really going to work every day and trying to serve the public good. So I've appreciated the opportunity.
The next fire chief will be selected by the general manager of the city's Infrastructure and Operations Department, Carrie Marshall.
City Council is relaxing the restrictions on building backyard homes in Thunder Bay.
The amended bylaw reduces the minimum setback for these units, while also creating new regulations for housings in Main Street zones. Jonathan Wilson reports.
A significant decision regarding housing in Thunder Bay at Monday's City Council meeting, but not before students from École Elsie McGill brought some holiday cheer to City Hall.
Thumpity thump thump thumpity thump thump, look at Frosty-O.
The students sang a number of Christmas classics for councillors, family, and friends in council chambers in the final session before the holiday break. Attention then turned to some significant zoning bylaw changes. City staff were recommending council approve the reduction of the minimum setback for backyard homes from 1.5 meters to 60 centimeters, which received approval from council. Another part of the bylaw change will see new regulations for housing in Main Street zones, which concerned Councillor Rajni Agarwal.
I think it's disgraceful for us to consider throwing them in the back of the building.
The changes would mean buildings in these areas would need a minimum of 60% of the first-story floor area be occupied by one or more street-facing commercial units, which Agarwal believes would force disabled tenants to live in housing units at the rear of the buildings.
A lot of these places have narrow alleyways, and if somebody's in a wheelchair or a walker, we're going to ask them to go through snow, slippery areas that might not be opened properly to get to the back of a building.
Administration did clarify that the majority of commercial alleyways are plowed to make garbage collection easier. The main street zones include 2 portions of the north side downtown and an area around Frederica Street on the south side. West Fort Councillor Kristen Oliver says she's been hearing from businesses in her ward that stress the importance of main floor commercial opportunities.
Keeping in mind that this is a business sector, and those opportunities for businesses to thrive and survive need to be available on the main street or on the street front on the main streets.
During the meeting, Council also approved an increase to TBT's annual fixed dividend to $19 million next year and $19.5 million in 2025. That's up from $18 million this year. The next review of the dividend model is scheduled for 2025. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
To Queen's Park now, where there's word today that the Ford government spent less than expected in the first 2 quarters of the fiscal year.
That comes from the Financial Accountability Officer, who released a new report. Siobhan Morris brings us the findings.
The provincial government spent less than it had mapped out through the first half of the fiscal year. The Financial Accountability Officer says $83.6 billion went out the door the first 2 quarters.
This was $2 billion, or 2.3% less than the province had planned to spend.
Overall spending was up about 4% compared to the same time frame last fiscal year.
The largest year-over-year spending increase was in the health sector, followed by education, children, community and social services, and other programs.
But for the opposition, spending less than planned is hard to justify.
It's very Scrooge-like, quite honestly.
Dollars laid down for programs including Ontario Works and ODSP, $183 million less than earmarked in the budget.
The fact that this government actually spent less than planned on core services is really a demonstration of how disconnected they are from the people that were elected to serve.
The government continues to be challenged on its contingency fund, which we learned last month has ballooned to almost $5.5 billion.
They've squirreled it away, they didn't spend in key areas, and now they keep sort of using that fund as an ATM on an emergency basis.
The FAO says between April and the end of September, the government pulled $277 million out of its rainy day fund. The biggest chunk, $180 million, to cover higher health costs in hospitals and home care. $76 million went to programs including housing, and $21 million to justice, mostly for the police college.
The contingency fund is just kind of is what it is.
Novak is taking a softer stance than his predecessor, who called out what he saw as an accountability problem.
It's not a transparent exercise.
The government calls the FAO's work a snapshot in time, not reflective of actual spending. We know that this report doesn't include new funding promised to the City of Toronto, since that announcement came after the second quarter had wrapped. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
The Ontario government has announced nearly $2.7 million in funding to help improve quality care and patient flow in Thunder Bay. Local MPP Kevin Holland was at Westway this morning to make that announcement. The funding is expected to help remove some of the pressures on hospitals and emergency rooms by supporting 3 organizations in the area that provide varying degrees of respite care. Westway will receive more than $2.5 million. The Alzheimer's Society is getting over $90,000, and Meals on Wheels program will receive more than $50,000. Westway Executive Director Dana McMillan says the funding will allow caregivers a much-needed rest.
Pressures can mount quickly, and so supporting, or this particular initiative will support caregivers to be able to get a break, to sort of rest, rejuvenate, so that they can continue on in their vital role of supporting the individuals that they are supporting at home.
It certainly is going to make a big difference here in Thunder Bay. I know my time talking with the agencies about the work they're doing and how important it is that they're able to, again, divert those patients from our overwhelmed healthcare system is vital.
The funding is part of the provincial government's $131 million investment to reduce alternative levels of care cases across the province and support patient flow in hospitals.
With Christmas less than a week away, volunteers with the RCMP's Toys for the North campaign are working quickly and tirelessly to get the toys prepared for shipping. The 12 volunteers spent the afternoon in Gardwine's warehouse sorting the hundreds of toys by age groups before preparing individual pallets for each First Nation community. This year, Toys of the North will be bringing gifts to children and youth in Casablanca, Deer Lake, Poplar Hill, Martin Falls, and Fort Severn. North Star Air Marketing Director Karen Matson says volunteers are working as fast as they can to get everything shipped out before this weekend.
We are trying our best here to get this all organized and out to our Red Lake and Pickle Lake base, because we'll have to get them on our freighters to bring them into the communities. And we definitely want them there before this weekend. So time is of the essence. We are planning to visit Martin Falls on Thursday afternoon with Santa and bring their allotment of toys and have a bit of a celebration there with the community people.
Well, turning to weather now, Mitch, we can see it there behind you above the freezing mark once again today.
Yeah, we saw the gifts on the screen, but it doesn't necessarily look like the holidays just yet. Warm temperatures once again here in Thunder Bay. The low for today was close to the seasonal mark of -18, but as for the high, way far off. Average highs for this time of year is around -7, so unseasonably warm here in Thunder Bay. And we did see plenty of sunshine, so it did look like a beautiful day outside. Not as much wind as we saw yesterday either from the northwest, only 4 to 18 kilometers an hour. Now, as we head to the region, it was also fairly nice throughout, especially as we head farther west. Kenora sitting at -4, -5 down in Fort Francis. It's expected to stay way above those seasonal marks heading into tonight, with just some clouds making their way through to Atikokan and Upsala at -4. And there is more clouds making their way in to Red Lake at -6. They could see some flurries, but expecting lots of cloud coverage heading over to Pickle Lake at -10. Now, farther northeast, the temperature is still fairly warm as well. The wind was up a little bit more in Greenstone, currently at -6. They're seeing plenty of cloud coverage heading in overnight, while farther east in Sault Ste. Marie, they could see some flurries and snow tonight, as there is a system really sneaking around the east side of the region. Could bring some rain as well, as the temperature is currently sitting at 0. Now, as we head back to Thunder Bay, the temperature is only going to be down to -7 tonight. The night's getting around -18, so definitely a lot warmer. The wind chill, though, is going to feel like -19 as the wind's picking up from the northwest up to 20 kilometers an hour. And we are seeing lots of clouds starting to roll in. Now, as for snow, there isn't much in the forecast heading into next week, but once again, we're going to see plenty of unseasonably warm temperatures.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mitch. Well, Ottawa has officially announced the timelines to phase out gas-powered vehicles in this country, but there are concerns that the infrastructure isn't yet in place to make that switch to EVs. We'll have full details on that and more when your News Hour continues after the break.
Standard tackles one of the main barriers to people buying EVs, the limited availability and long wait time.